You got any more of these? Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Echo CBG video, fashionably late as always. But of course, with BCS season going about, I myself got to attend a couple of them. I've got Belgium coming up, obviously I've done BCS Leeds, but we obviously kicked everything off with BCS Germany over in Osnabruck, where we obviously got to meet a bunch of our friends we haven't seen, obviously even JJ, we got to see Maxime in person again. So we saw him Vanguard, we got to see Eric, 10 minutes of time, we got to see Filip for the first time as well. So I mean, overall it's been a fantastic experience and I'm really looking forward to doing more of these in future. But with us peaking early as we often do, we did manage to get our top 8 finish over in Germany for the standard format. And so what we're going to do is we're going to quickly transition over down here where we're going to finally get to have a look at the list with which I managed to get top 8 at BCS Osnabruck. Now with that being said, stick around for the end of the video. We're actually going to look over the changes I've made since then and the reasons I made them, because I do think it makes the deck a whole lot spicier. So starting off with the standard Nirvana ride line, we are looking at our ride deck. Starting off, of course, with our normal egg, transitioning over to Reno, then over to Ryu, and finishing off on Chakrabarti, Divine Dragon Nirvana. This is kind of your standard ride line for anything Nirvana, or it used to be, up until Karen, and you'll see the new revised version, which is what I ended up playing in Leeds, which if it wasn't for those goddamn over triggers, I might have been able to post some slightly better results for, but throughout most of hours of testing and discussion with some of the best players I know personally, it's been a very clutch change, and it's made the deck, I think, a whole lot better. Since as of set 6, and I think even as far as set 7 goes, this is by far the superior deck compared to Nirvana Jiva and the Cross Overdress deck. Right, so we're gonna kick it off with our grade 4s. We're gonna be running only 8 of them, and I think you guys already know what they are. The first thing we're going to be running is 4 copies of Maha Nirvana. This is our grade 4 form of Nirvana that has 2 effects. The first one is the continuous effect, which is for as long as you have a unit in the overdress state, your front row will gain 10k. This is free, this is no negotiable, and this will win you games because this basically makes all of your units hit fantastic numbers with very little effort. It makes all of your Esperidias, swing for 23k. It makes all of your arcs 20, it makes all of your Varinas 30, and it gives you, really nice options in terms of aggression, because that's really what this deck is. What this deck is, in my testing, is effectively a tempo deck, where you kind of try and ping your opponent for 1 or 2 damage early. You're going to try and, basically what your hope is that when your opponent goes into the grade 3 turn, they are at 2 to 3 damage, and your plan going first or second is actually going to change when we get to the grade 1 lineup. But ideally, by the time your Maha pings, you want them to be on either 3 or 4 damage, because you want to be rushing them. Now, if they don't let you get to that point, you can still catch up, because of course you got restatus, you're an average 5 attacks per turn. Your average is 4, but kind of your high end is 5. So if you can exert a lot of pressure, and if they keep low early, it either means there's triggers out of their deck, their OT is out, or they have wasted so much to guard that it's probably going to be very hard for them to make a comeback. Now, the second effect, which is kind of where the new spice comes in later on, is act once per turn, counterblast 1, and either remove a Nirvana from soul, or discard a Nirvana from hand. This can be Jiva if you run for whatever reason, this can be the grade 3 if you run Dishonorite copies, or this could be other copies of Maha Nirvana. And what you do with that is then you get to call a grade 0 from your drop zone to Rearguard Circle, and if your opponent is on 4 or less damage, you deal them 1 damage. You do not negate the effect, you do not pass go, and you do not collect 200. Now, the second card, which is kind of what I think really pushes this deck towards being the competitive powerhouse that it is 4 copies of Varina Esperaridea, whose effect is, well, again, twofold. 1, it overdresses over a Trickstar, and when it does so, it proceeds to take every single Trickstar and overdress unit from your drop zone and stick it right under it. And the second effect, and notice the important thing about this card, is the second effect is once per turn, when your Vanguard attacks, Soul Blast 1 and restand it, and it would gain 5k for every unit under it, for each one of its original dresses. So every Trickstar, every card under it gives 5k. Now, the reason that this is really important is that second effect as you'll see it on the screen coming up as well, is not actually tied to being overdressed. So, for example, you'll see this run in some premium decks, so that when you stride, you can normal call it and just get a free restanding rearguard. But what this actually lets you do is just ride up, rush your opponent, and now they have to deal with it. This card actually single-handedly makes Prison from one of your worst matchups to one of your easiest matchups. This actually came up in BCS when effectively I managed to open one of these for turn. Prison, if Prison wants to play around this deck, all they really have to do is not play their Prison until turn 3. Because if they do, and they ride the Rosetta Pink, they're basically gambling that you don't have this in hand. Because if you do, you just immediately call it out with Soul Blast, because you're not normal calling it, right? You're calling it from Prison. You immediately call it, you get a restanding rearguard, and you basically ping your opponent for 3 to 4 damage instantly on their grade 2 turn, which is something they really, really can't keep up with. And yeah, honestly, this card has been my main win card. It has been winning me so many games. It is actually unreal. Now, for the grade 3 slot, we're only actually running the 1 copy of the grade 3 from our ride line, but there are arguments to be made for running Expector. So this is effectively a card that goes against the original power of all of its original dresses, and when it attacks, it may counterblast 1 and gain 15k in a crit. However, at the end of that battle, take all of its original dress and drop into the drop zone. Now, the argument is that this beats decks like Baron Magnus out, this beats decks like Prison out, because effectively you don't have the resources to recover from losing those cards. So the argument is effectively you get to, on turn 2, Arcs. If you don't Arcs, on turn 3 you go Trickstar, that you search from your right line, Verena over it, that you search from your right line, Expector over it. Expector will be swinging for anywhere between 28 and 43k. With 2 crit, if you choose to go that route. Then Digital, so if you lose, you only lose 1 card, and then next turn you're setting up for the Esperidia. So you can kind of manage it that way. However, in my experience, Counterblast gets really, really thin later on. Maybe with the upgraded build, there's maybe some room for that. But in my experience, I've never been a big fan of it. I understand why you would do it. I just don't think it's necessarily the way I play the game. Because the idea is effectively you would then set up the Esperidia, but if you don't see it on that turn 3, it feels like much more of a feel bad draw, so I'm not a big fan of it, but I understand completely why you would do it. Now, because of that, our grade 3 lineup is very, very bare bones. Not like we're going to pretend our grade 2 lineup is much better. So for starters, we're going to be running 4 copies of Pot of Greed. Now what does it do? It allows us to counterblast 1 when we overdress Owner Trickster to draw 2 cards. Then, it gains 5k until the end of that turn. Now, this card is insane, it's unreal, it is Nirvana's biggest advantage engine, and, I mean, more often than not, what's going to happen is people will just say, well, just don't give them CB, and sure, you could do that, but what happens at that point is that we, as the Nirvana player, collect so much advantage by you effectively having 2 dead turns, because either you go first, right, because, like, I'm still bashing you, right, like, I don't care. Either I go first, meaning I'm going to get my Twin Drive, and you're going to deal, like, 2 or 3 damage in that, well, like 1 to 2 damage maybe, and you're gonna run the risk of getting like crit OT'd, which I mean doesn't happen often, but like it's the risk that really, pressures people. Or you give me a CB, I draw 2, and later on there's actually some extra plays we can make. But the idea is effectively just, you get a nice beater, you get to draw 2, which is obviously really nice because you really want to be seeing your pieces in this deck. Or your opponent doesn't do anything for 2 turns, in which case you are also winning. So it's like, there isn't really like an out that's like favorable to your opponent in that sense. They just have to decide which one they prefer to suffer from least. And second of all, we have 2 copies of base trial deck Verena. Now, the reason that we run this card is twofold. 1, it is a fantastic beater at 20k on its own. Second of all, it gives us removal, or I suppose 3 reasons. And the third reason is that it's searchable with the right line. And the reason that we run 2 is because you don't want to like open 1 for game or like damage check 1, and now you like Soul Blast 1 for no reason later on, or you don't Soul Blast, but then like feel kind of bad because you don't deck thin. So like you'd rather be in a position where you're always able to Soul Blast it. So you're kind of in a position where you kind of have to run 2 of these, right? And realistically, this is kind of like where our main grade 2 game plans are, because we can just kind of like bash our opponent. And there are very, very few cases where you don't want to ride up. But there are some occasions which are facilitated by our grade 1s, because the simple reason that for grade 1 we're going to be running standard 4 PGs. The reason we're not going to be running the promo PG, or the order rather, is solely because we are on a grade 4 deck, and so we're not going to get to use that order later, and you don't want to be like forced to PG early. So seeing these is really nice because these can be like a real lifesaver. like, obviously not too much detail there. You guys know, you guys play Vanguard, you know what PGs do. Then, we've got, in my opinion, one of the 2 MVPs of the deck being Amelia. Now, what Amelia allows you to do is 2 things. One, she has 1 skill, but that skill allows us to do a couple of things. So her effect is you may, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may put her to soul and ride your Vanguard needs to be Nirvana, but obviously in this deck that's a given. It allows her to be put into soul for counterblast 1, grab any named Nirvana from our hand and ride it, and obviously then that can't be used for the rest of the turn. So you can't call another one out and do that effect, it's just not an option that you have. So what she does for us is twofold. One, she allows us to superior ride to go straight to grade 4 going second, because our opponent will obviously be on grade 3 unless they didn't ride up, but that is almost an unheard of strategy in Overdress. And the second one is it gives us soul. The changes I'm going to discuss with you later are changes I made to circumvent the need to CB to gain soul, because that feels kind of bad. Because like we said earlier, Nirvana's biggest issue is no CC, and you don't want to be CBing pieces away just to like gain 1 soul for a restand, right? But in this case, she is a card you hard mulligan for going second, because like going second, all you care for is you want to have this and Maha, and if you open arcs, like that's nice. Like that's like your 3 pieces, like your 2 pieces, maybe 3 that you like absolutely hard mulligan for, because not seeing this card going second is like a death sentence. Like seeing this helps so much and it accelerates your tempo so much that like that's why you run it for you. Like you want to see it absolutely every time going second. In future, I cut it to fewer copies, but you'll see that in the updated version towards the end of the deck profile. And then our last grade 1 is the card that facilitates my personal aggressive playstyle. So you'll notice we ran quite a lot of Overdress units, about 10 of them, in fact. And those can be kind of hard to search for, because normally that's counterblast reliant. But what this deck does very well is turboing to grade 4. And the reason that helps us is because we get to abuse Retigi, whose effect is on place, counterblast 1, or on place rear guard specifically, counterblast 1. Grab a unit with Overdress from its drop zone, add it to your hand, and if you are grade 4, you countercharge 1. So effectively, you get to retrieve anything from your drop zone, so it lets you discard your Overdress units for your right deck. And so long as you have 1 counterblast open, you can like for free retrieve them back, right? Which comes up more than you think, actually. This is actually a very, very powerful ability, and this lets you kind of like discard your less important pieces early, and you only need really 1 or 2 of these to like get your Esperidias back, because effectively discarding your Overdress units early does help facilitate your bigger Esperidia turns later on. So it kind of lets you have that really, really, really powerful turn on grade 3, or potentially, or rather on grade 4, but on turn 3 if you're going second. Because obviously you have your Trickstar, if you arcs it, then you can just revive it for the ping, overdress it, stick everything under it, and bash your opponent. Then, finally, at least for this portion of the deck profile, we've got our trigger lineup. Now, first card is, we don't want it here, but it is the Dragon Empire Overtrigger. This card is obviously insane, almost at any point. Obviously, most often, because of triple drive, you'll rip it on a grade 4 turn. And just being able to like hard draw 6 is usually going to be like swinging games the other way. If like the power doesn't kill them, then drawing 6 makes them fall so far behind that they just kind of roll over and die. However, obviously Bushiroad, please ban these. These like unironically ruin competition and make people not want to get better at your game. So like, please, it's here, but remove it, please. Then we're going to be running 3 copies of the effect crits for Dragon Empire. The only reason that this isn't at 4 is because they are expensive and your reprint policy fucking sucks. Reprint these a little more, please. They are really, really important. They just help you get free soul. They help your numbers be like a little bit more irritating, which obviously is always great. But just crits, yellows, you want to kill them. Restanding rear guards are cool. And yeah, triple driving in your Maha. Usually Maha's going to be your low swing, or rather it'll be like your lowest swing, because effectively you're going to swing 2 Esperidias, usually, ideally, then Vanguard swings, and Vanguard will restand them, and at least 1 of them will be massive. So it'll be kind of like on the lower end of power, so people sometimes admit, like, effectively you're going to take your Vanguard swing, hoping you don't get crits, or they'll hard guard your Vanguard swing, but then you get to put all the crits on your Vanguard. So you kind of get to like maneuver that either way, and your opponent doesn't really, again, get a particularly winning angle there. They just want to, you just want to check yellows and win the game. Because of that, we're running 4 more vanilla crits, so that's a 7 critical lineup all in all. I apologize for the glare. Welcome to recording in the daytime in a lit room. So, like I said earlier, you want to check yellows, you want to check crit, you want to kill your opponent. Now, what that does mean, of course, is that we're going to be running 4 draw triggers. Now, I know some people argue for fronts, and that is a valid argument, because the idea is that at the moment that your Vanguard swings, all of your front row will be standing. Counter argument is, although the shield value is better, seeing my pieces is really important. Checking these on a defensive turn, or like checking these on like a turn where I'm like falling behind a lot, is an absolute lifesaver. Same with defensively, like when you're like just short of guarding things, seeing those cards is absolutely fantastic. Phenomenal stuff. You do want to be seeing 3 to 4 of these. Realistically, you're going to be either running 7-4 or 8-3. I don't think there's really incorrect decision. You can really go either way on those. However, where there is going to be a bit of division, I suppose, is about our heal lineup. So my heal lineup as of Germany, so I should preface this with, for Germany, what I was expecting to see was Gravidius, which were my only 2 losses for the day. One to the guy who ended up winning the whole thing in Swiss, and the second one to Dennis from Team Overtriggered. So you guys can check the YouTube channel. Really, really cool guys. I really hope to see them again soon. Who was obviously then came in 3rd by beating JJ in 3rd to 4th, but obviously lost to Filip, who then ended up coming 2nd. I'm running, so because we're expecting Prison, Baramagnus, and Gravidia. In fact, I was expecting units that gain criticals, not through triggers, because that's Saki, and getting reliable crits is way nicer. So I decided to run 2 effect heals. These are the critical effect heals. And the reason that we opted to run these is, again, because 25k shield is really nice. A lot of Baramagnus players don't actually run, don't actually end up running the Persona Rides too much. They'll be running 1 tops. So very often a 25k shield becomes a 2 to pass on their 23 columns, or their 23k Vanguard swing, and their rear guards are usually 1 damage, so you can kind of just take them. So making this a 2 pass becomes really, really powerful. Obviously on Prison, every little helps because they get fucking massive, and your deck just kind of suffers against Prison if they know what to do. Just be happy most people don't. And you run 2 of the normal vanilla heals, just because the extra shield value is normally better on an average turn. If you're not facing those decks, you just want the 15k shield. It's nice, it helps, you just want to see it. And finally, of course, we're running 4 Trickstars. And yeah, this was the list I somehow managed to pilot to top 8 over in BCS Germany. And soon enough, I'm going to do a quick cut over, and I'm going to be explaining the updated list that I ran for leads that I personally think is slightly better, definitely spicier. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys in a moment. Alright guys, welcome back to the updated deck profile video. Well, I say video, segment of the video. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the deck again. However, what we're going to be doing is finding out the changes, and I'll be explaining why we've made them, so you guys can build it yourselves. So, for our ride line, it might look the same. Oh boy, what are these sick top loaders that you're using? Well, we're going to go backwards, and we're going to reveal our grade 3 again. Of course, that is Chakramarti, Divine Dragon, Nirvana. Of course, we got Ray as our grade 2. Of course, we got Reno as our grade 1. And I know you guys are thinking, well, okay, well, that's egg, right? And I mean, yeah, this is egg. But actually, this is wrong. This gets chucked the hell out of here. This doesn't need to be in this deck anymore, because we found a superior, optimal starter. And that starter is, well, actually, it's going to throw your opponents off, but it's absolutely fine. That starter is Trick Moon. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh, what the fuck, dude? Fuck, why are you running this garbage? This doesn't do anything on starter. This is a Buffsagura unit, and it's like a main deck card. Like, well, what the fuck does this do? Right? Well, I mean, valid criticism, I love hearing, constructive stuff. But you're correct. The second card effect of this card is Garbaggio. It does not go in this deck. We do not give a shit. But what we do care about is the first effect, which is when this is called to rearguard by a Vanguard's ability, you countercharge 1. Now, what this effectively does, because for some reason card game players cannot read this effect, they think it's tied to like Buff Saga and shit. They think I'm being funny. This isn't being funny. This is being elite, okay? I'll show you guys. We're gonna carry on going through the deck, and you'll understand why this card is fucking elite. In fact, I'll keep it right here for you. So when I show you guys the combos with this card, you'll remember, like, you'll feel really dumb, and I want you to feel that way, okay? So what we're gonna do, of course, we're gonna be starting with the exact same grade 4 lineup. We are good players. We're gonna be running 4 Mahas, 4 Esperidias, no changes there. We're gonna be running no more grade 3s because this, my good friends, is a Christian home. We do not do this. We do not play any other grade 3s. As I said earlier, you could play Esperidias, but, you know, I'm not a fan of those. Like I said, you can play them if you want to. Sucks to suck, don't do them. Now, what you can actually do in this deck, actually, speaking of, if your opponents do decide to try and be clever with you, or try and be cute, try and damage deny you, what you can do is you're going to go in your turn 2, you're going to Ox because you're a good player and you open it every goddamn time. You see this card? This is in your opening hand every time, right? You hard mulligan for this, and this is always there. So, what happens? What happens on turn 2? Well, it's actually really simple. You're going to look on your Vanguard, you're going to ride turn 1. Sick. You're going to go turn 2. Sick. Search your deck for a Trickstar. Damn. Cool shit. You're going to go Trickstar, you're going to go Ox, you're going to draw 2. Then what? Let's pretend this is your face down damage because your opponent's stupid and they give you damage. What happens now? You can move this up front. Now, some of you will say, well, okay, cool. This now swings. Sick. This swings, I drive check, do its thing. And you're going to go, oh, Echo, you're a fucking clown. What did you do that for? Now they have a Rigard to swing into. They can do their drive checks. Your turn is over. What are you meant to do? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restand. This is going to die. I'm going to restand for turn. I'm going to draw. I'm going to go into my grade 3, into my Chakrabarti Divine Dragon, into Nirvana. I'll Soul Blast this away. I'll search my deck for Verena. Sick. Now, what we can do, we can discard Verena. Call Trick Moon back out. Oh, look at that, look at that. Oh, it's countercharged. Oh, sick. Now, if I have more Overdress units on the front, I swing, I CB, I gain 10k, or if I'm going second, I drop Amelia, I immediately superior right to grade 4. So what your opponent does is they think they're damage denying you. They think they're playing around you. But what they're actually doing is playing directly into your traps, because this effectively makes it so you cannot be damage denied. Note this doesn't work with Jiva, but this also works with Maha Nirvana. Because Maha Nirvana, like all cool and epic cards, literally only cares about you being, like, calling out a grade 0. It doesn't care which one you call, so you are basically setting yourself up to be calling this out. Now, for that reason, again, we are running 4 Arcs, 2 base Verenas, no real reason to deviate from this, and the grade 1s are kind of where the spice is again, so we're going to move right over to the triggers again. So what we're going to do is, this time, actually, we cut Trick Stars down to 3. Oh boy. 3 Trick Stars? Damn, that sounds kind of bad. Well, okay, there's a couple more changes you're going to see here. With heal triggers, I decided, going into leads, there was going to be a lot more resign decks. I was expecting to see more Thagrias, following some of the American results. Obviously, congratulations, Frank, aka Nara Samurai, for coming second. Really cool and epic. You love seeing your boys top. So what you end up seeing is you still run 2 of the crit heals, but I decided that, you know what, crit heals are cool, but you know what's cooler? Also having a counter to restand. So because BCS leads came out about 3 to 4 days after Flagberg promo came out, after Shelling Cannon, so what became apparent to me was that I was going to have to be facing some Flagberg players. And because of that, I was terrified. I was shitting myself. I was thoroughly in fit with the season, spooked. So I was terrified of Flagberg, so I decided to run 2 of these to help combat the fear. I carried on running, well, this has 4 leads. I ended up trading this down to 3. And what ended up happening was I upped it to 8 crit, like previously discussed, with 4 vanilla and 4 effect this time, because thank you to Celestial Zero, or the Judge Leo, for lending me one, an esteemed and respected member of Team Brexit. Effectively, this is what ended up happening in our trigger lineup, and of course, we hate it, but it's there. It's the over trigger. And finally, we're going to get to go to our grade 1 lineup, which I think is honestly where a lot of the kind of like more interesting sides of this deck come in, because I want you to keep this in mind. So this used to be at 4. Correct? Now, Retsuji, for the same reasons as before, is also at 4. He allows us to recover our overdress units, which means we can discard them more proactively for our ride deck. And we're running 3 Amelia, because going second, this is imperative, so I want to see it, but going first, this is kind of like a dead feel bad card, and you don't really want to CB, to get 1 card, or to get 1 soul. So you go, okay, so if this down to 3, this down to 3, this down to 3, what are our new 3 cards? Well, of course, other than our 4 perfect cards, evidently. Well, okay, so what happens now? What are these 3 cards you slotted? Well, you guys might have actually never read this card. It is from the original Festival Collection for Overdress, and it states, when your unit with the Overdress skill attacks, put it to Soul, and give an Overdress unit 5k. We are running this baby at 3. You'll notice she has taken the slot of 1 of each of these. Now you go, why? Why are you doing this? What sort of malevolent being compelled you to play this deck? Well, what this does is it provides us for Soul for free. Although it's a 6k, is a booster, so we can hit nice numbers. And even more importantly than that, it makes our arcs on attack 20k, meaning it is a 15k shield to guard on turn 2. It fuels Soul, which obviously you don't do this against Prison, but for most other decks it is absolutely a reasonable goal. And what this most importantly does is on Esperidia attacks, allows us to boost Esperidia, making a 28k swing, which is 20k to guard, meaning your opponent most likely takes it, unless they check the defensive, but very often you're not pinging with Baja. So it is effectively a 20k shield, so at least 2 cards from their hand that they are not guarding with. And once you get to Soul Blast 1, you get to prepare it. Once your other one attacks, this goes to Soul. So that when they attack, you Soul Blast it right back out, give it 5k, and then it swings for 28k again. Presumably on the one that isn't getting the massive boost from all the original dress units. So you're making it really, really, really awkward for your opponent to guard it. You're making it super, 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 super powerful. Because normally what happens if your opponent pings, if you ping your opponent with Maha and they check a defensive, other than OT, because, fuck OTs, but if it's not an OT that they checked, what you're going to find is now everything is a super easy guard. It's a 5k guard. They keep just intercept 2 of the attacks. It's super, super menial. You really wish you had front triggers at that point. But this makes it so that at least a 10k guard, even if they get a defense, or if they get a defensive, it's a 10k guard. If they do not get a defensive, you're looking at a 20k guard, meaning your opponent's taken at least 2 cards out from hand, so this is a pseudo battle door, which is absolutely fantastic. This card has been absolute sex. And so what you get to do to your opponent is certain plays, like for example, let's say you have 2 open CB. What this allows you to do is absolutely crazy. Let's say this is your setup, okay? Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna go, as long as you have 1 CB open, you can have more than 2 CB, as long as you have 1 available, you can do this, right? Say you're going second. You arxed, then they attacked you, because they decided, he's already arxed, it's whatever. You go discard 1 card. You call this out. You countercharge 1. Right? Then, you proceed to call over it with Amelia. You counterblast 1. You stick Amelia into Soul. You grab a grade 4 from hand, you write it. Skill. Counterblast 1. Call grade 0 from drop. Countercharge 1. And you also ping them for 1 damage. So all the while, you get to do these little plays where for almost no damage. So effectively, with no change to my damage zone, in terms of face up or down, I managed to Superior Ride to grade 4, ping you for 1 damage, and now gain triple drive. So you get to do all these tiny little interactions that people just do not play around. That let you just pressure your opponent super, super heavily. And now, you're sitting there, yeah, it's only a 5k booster, sure, but this also makes this a 15k shield now only makes this a 1 to pass. So it's now they again have to commit 20k shield. So there's all these little tiny things that this deck can do with these 3 changes. Between this and the 3 Mirrans that we're running, literally these cards give this deck so much more flexibility that it's actually insane. These come up so much, and they let you play around people. People don't know what to do against you. You just get to win the freest games. That is just, it's actually unreal. And it actually does really well when your opponent doesn't OT you for 3 rounds in a row. But, alright guys, I want to say huge thank you for tuning in. Please stay tuned. There will be more coming out. I swear to God this time, really. For real, I swear to God. It actually is coming. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, take care. I hope you play this deck. I hope you enjoy it. I've been having an absolute blast. This is my favorite Overdress deck at the moment, as it has been since release, it seems. But guys, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.